Hello, I'm a government demographer. I'm here today to discuss the population issues in Brazil. I've developed a population policy to deal with the current and future areas of concern that Brazil will have to face. Brazil is a country in South America. It occupies half the continent's landmass, as well as being the fifth largest country in the world and the fifth most populous country on Earth. The majority of the inhabitants of Brazil live along the eastern seaboard. It has rapid growing cities, huge hydroelectric and industrial complexes, mining areas, and fertile lands for agriculture. This makes it the world's major economies. This graph of Brazil shows the crude birth rates from the 18,000s to the 2015. In the 18,000s, they had kept the same rates until the 1880s, when there was a large rise. The rise is from immigration from foreign countries, many of which from Europe. There was another dip as money was hard to achieve, but started to get back to the same rate from the 18,000s to the 1880s for 30 years. This is from the country getting richer from its high demand for coffee production. World War II made the birth rate drop but then started to rise after the worldwide baby boom. It was also the time Brazil was able to stabilize its economy and political landscape. From 1960 to 2015, there was a huge decline. This is from Brazil becoming richer and more urban, but as well as from a constitutional crisis in the 1960s. This graph of Brazil shows a great decline in crude death rates from 1950 to 2015. There's been a slowing down of the death rate. The reason for this is from the expanding of public health system, urbanization, and sanitation over the years. This graph of Brazil shows a change in life expectancy rates from the 1800s to 2015. A large decrease in crude death rates have been recognized, starting from the start of 1916 to lowest in 1918, but then started to rise again in 1920. Then there's a gradual growing line going all the way to the ages of 75. The huge dip in life expectancy in 1918 was from the Spanish flu. After these years, the life expectancy started to increase gradually as Brazil is starting to get help in place to focus on keeping stable health and sanitation systems. This graph of Brazil shows the total fertility rates from 1960 to 2015. From 1940s to the 1960s, there was a baby boom as young men came back from World War II and began to create families in large numbers. But nowadays, the social structure, religious beliefs, and more economic opportunities and urbanization of Brazil affect the fertility rates, as well as the use of contraceptive methods. The graph of Brazil shows the infant mortality rate from the 1950s to 2015. There's a large decrease in the number of deaths, but there is still a significant amount of deaths in Brazil. Compared to the other countries like the United States of America, with 5.7 deaths per 1,000 births, while in Brazil, 14.6 deaths per 1,000 people. Through the years, the deaths of infants kept changing through more difficulties as prenatal conditions and malformations. But through the years of advancing in medicine, we were able to see the risks and be able to avoid them even more than we had once. In the 1960s, Brazil had a majority of its population in the age group of 0 to 19 years old, but then a large decrease in the other ages. The working ages 20 to 60 did not have many people, only 20% of the population. But from the inauguration of Brasilia, the economy wasn't greatly affected by this. In 2020, Brazil started to stabilize its CBR from the low rates in 1960s. The working ages also increased by a large amount as medicine advanced started to increase life expectancy. In 2060, Brazil's CBR will be stable as well as the population as a whole. It is shown that the increase in population in the ages of 60 and above. This is from the large amount of children that Brazil had the past years. Looking at the graph, it is shown that the majority of the population is situated along the right side of Brazil. Especially the major cities are highly populated. The two big cities, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, had over 5 million people. It is said that 80% of Brazil's residents live in urban areas. It is also seen that the left side of Brazil had only 1 to 20 people per square kilometer, which compared to the cities is extremely low. The reason many people migrate to the cities is that it has more job opportunities than the rural areas. The urban areas also have good transportation links and resources which are unable to be easily available in the outskirts. When looking at the physical map, it shows more of the physical factors. The reason that many of the cities are located on the east side of Brazil is that it's alongside the ocean. Resources can be easily transported to the cities by boat from all over the world. Near the north of Brazil, the country has very little infrastructure, as resources are harder to be transported, as well as majority of the land is part of the Amazon forest. Brazil has a large population, but it's not evenly distributed. Many live in the cities, which then leads to overpopulation in those areas. The amount of people in the country isn't the problem, it's the distribution that causes problems. One of the main problems Brazil faces is its lack of education, which then leads to its economic struggles. In the UN's Education Development Index, Brazil ranks at 79th place, which is very low compared to Chile, another Latin country, at ranked 41. The problems that occur and need more attention to are expanding preschool coverages, increasing the percentage of children attending school, and the quality of the schools. Written by the Copenhagen Constituous Center, the few Brazilian kids who go to pre-primary school have a large advantage in their future life. It is shown that they perform better in later schooler years, as well as a lower likeness of them dropping out and less involvement in crimes and have higher earnings as an adult. This then leads to the other problem that Brazil faces, which is the attendance of the school children in Brazil. Around 88.7% complete their basic education, with 600,000 and more primary ages kids not attending school at all. With the kids who are in school, around one-third of them have to repeat a grade or at least once in their schooling years. When looking at the population as a whole, around 1.3 million are classified as illiterate. It's important to have skilled people in the economy, which is why education is a large problem for Brazil, as the new generation has already a low fertility rate of 1.75 births per woman, meaning that few people in the next generation. They will soon need to uphold the economy that were brought down from the working classes retiring. Having a good economy is very important for a country, especially Brazil, as there will be an increase in national output, meaning the living standards will improve. Brazil will need to grow economically to provide for the 34% of the population that is under the poverty level. It is important to have skilled people in the economy, which is why education is a large problem for Brazil, as the new generation has already a low fertility rate of 1.7 births per woman, meaning that fewer people in the next generations. One of the main problems Brazil faces is the income distribution. Around 10% of the population earn 50% of the national income, while 34% live under the poverty line, while 20% of the residents live in favelas. These homes are low-income homes that were first built in the 20th century in Rio. The reason for these buildings at first was to house the military during the Civil War for a short period of time, but in later years they become homes for rural workers looking for job opportunities in large cities. Brazil's Institute of Applied Economic Research has told that 28.5% of the urban population doesn't have access to public water, sewage, and garbage collection services. Other than the homes, many of the favela residents turn to drug trafficking and crime as they're unable to get jobs that have a stable enough income. When looking at what the World Bank had to say that they suggested of improving the education of Brazil, the best strategy being to start enrolling kids early in their childhood into schools as it reduces inequality and leveling the education playing field. What has been done already was raising the enrollment from 8 to 18% of the 0 to 3 age groups, as well as from preschool from 49% to 81%. There's been a great amount of progress for Brazil, but now one of their priorities should be to target their services directly to the most vulnerable low-income children, as well as raising the quality of their services. It has become a policy to ensure that within the 3 years of schooling, students should have at least 20 hours of effective schoolwork in the weekly schedule of day courses. This will help the attendance of the students, but what needs to be more done is to improve their academic skills by providing better quality supplies, monitoring and evaluating programs to go more in depth in subjects such as training for jobs, as well as having well-educated educators to improve the students' performance. Attention should also be brought to creating better educational resources in Portuguese as not so advanced compared to English language. As the living conditions have been improving in the years, it is important to be able to spread the new knowledge and technology to other favelas around in Brazil. Written by BBC, areas such as Roxina have been a great success in the improvement of life. In this area, the majority of the homes have been given a stronger structure with concrete bricks. It is also told that most have basic sanitation, plumbing, and electricity. The infrastructure has also been improved for transportation, such as bus links, as well as more job opportunities for the residents. Businesses, as in banks, drugstores, and many other things, have been implanted in these areas. The amount of money that this improvement took from the government was around 278 million. But bringing attention to the other favela or areas, the improvement in life will show and improve Brazil as a whole. The government will need to improve a great sum of their GDP to improve the favelas, and it will take time to be able to restore the other areas.